The first crack didn't come with a scream or a shattered plate. It came with a laugh. A laugh from my boss, Mr. Carter Jennings, while he sipped his black coffee 3 feet from my cubicle. A laugh so guttural, so filthy, that it gnawed at my ribs before I even understood why. "You should have heard her," Carter boasted to Mike from accounting, slapping his thigh like he'd just scored the winning touchdown. She was screaming my name in the bathroom upstairs, loud enough to shake the damn pipes. I froze, pinned halfway through a report, breath stuck somewhere between my heart and my throat. I wasn't supposed to hear that. I wasn't supposed to be there at all. Carter thought I was still in the conference room. But I was there, sitting, listening, dying. My wife's name, Brittany, dangled from his tongue like a spoiled piece of candy he didn't want anymore. And I sat there, a ghost in a chair, while my boss, a man I shook hands with every morning, laughed about bending my wife over a sink like she was some Friday night cheap date. I stared at the monitor, trying to breathe, trying to not imagine Brittany's lips whispering Carter's name, her nails scraping those filthy bathroom tiles, her legs wrapped around a man who wasn't me. But once you hear something like that, you can't unhear it. Once you imagine it, it carves itself into your skull. Minutes later, like a scene from a cheap, cruel movie, Carter swaggered by my desk. Brittany beside him, smirking, hair perfect, makeup flawless, her fake laugh curving the air like a dagger. She didn't even flinch when our eyes met, not even a flicker of guilt, just a tilt of her head, like I was some dog waiting for scraps. Then came the words, the knife twist. "Sign the divorce papers, Nathan," Carter said with a cold smile, "or I'll destroy your life, take your kids, and you'll move back to your mommy and daddy's house like a little boy." Brittany just nodded, a mocking glint in her eye, like she couldn't wait to watch me fall apart. I signed. I didn't even argue. I didn't even speak. I just signed, numb and broken and burning from the inside out. But that night, while they celebrated, probably dirtying another bathroom stall, I planned my revenge. The kind of revenge that doesn't involve screaming or gunshots. The kind that waits. The kind that smiles. The kind that makes the earth tremble without making a sound. It began at 2:43 a.m. The first wave, Brittany's bank accounts frozen. The second wave, Carter's wife, yes, he was married to, receiving a little anonymous package with very incriminating photos. The third wave, a little tip-off to HR about Carter's inappropriate workplace relations, complete with timestamps and security footage pulled by a very helpful IT friend of mine. And by dawn, the world Brittany and Carter built on lies was a smoldering, twitching wreck. At 7:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. 132 missed calls. All from my son, Aiden. Begging, crying, screaming for help. Because Brittany had been thrown out of the house. Because Carter had been arrested for fraud and misconduct. Because everything they thought they stole from me was now drowning them. And I was just getting started. After the first wave of destruction, you'd think I'd feel satisfied. I didn't. The silence in my apartment that night was louder than any explosion. I sat there, staring at my phone lighting up with Aiden's missed calls, while memories I didn't ask for ripped through me like knives. Brittany's fake smiles. Her late-night, work meetings. The sudden perfume I didn't recognize on her clothes. The lingering taste of someone else's lies on her lips when she kissed me goodnight. I should have seen it. God, I should have seen it. But love makes you blind in the worst ways. It makes you want to believe the impossible, even when it's slapping you across the face. I got up around 4 a.m., restless, heart still pounding from the chaos I'd unleashed. I opened the drawer where Brittany used to keep her letters, her little notes she wrote, only for me. The drawer I hadn't touched since she started coming home late. There it was. A pink envelope, sealed but sloppily shoved into the back. Almost like she wanted it hidden, but not too well. I hesitated. My hands shook like they didn't belong to me anymore. Then I ripped it open. Inside wasn't a love letter. It was a list. A list of dates, names, places, restaurants, hotels, and next to each entry, a little heart, or a little X. I recognized some of the names. Coworkers, friends, even a goddamn neighbor. A neighbor who smiled and waved at me while mowing his lawn every Sunday. She had a system, a full, organized double life. And the bathroom stall with Carter? That was just the cherry on a pile of filth stretching back for months. Maybe longer. I dropped the list like it burned my skin. I stumbled back, breathing hard, gripping the edge of the table like it would keep me from falling into some black, endless pit. It wasn't just betrayal. It was betrayal designed to humiliate me. to rip me apart piece by piece while she kept smiling at my face. I staggered into the bathroom, the same bathroom where she'd kissed me the night she came home late from work. The mirror caught my reflection. I didn't even recognize the man staring back. Dead eyes. Sunken face. A hollow, pathetic ghost of the husband who thought love could fix anything. I punched the mirror. The glass spider-webbed, blood dripping from my knuckles like tiny rivers. I didn't feel the pain. I barely felt anything anymore. Except for one thing. Rage. Deep. Molten. All-consuming rage. Not just at Brittany. Not just at Carter. At myself. For trusting her. For believing her lies. For making excuses every time I get screamed that something was wrong. I wrapped my hand in a towel, pressing down until the bleeding slowed. I wasn't going to bleed out in my bathroom. Not tonight. There was still more to do. I grabbed my laptop, opened an old account Brittany didn't know I had, and started piecing things together. Bank statements. Phone records. Messages she deleted but hadn't realized I could recover. Every click revealed another wound. Another betrayal. Another fake smile she'd fed me while thinking I was too stupid to notice. At 5:23 a.m., I found something that made my stomach turn cold. A video. Security footage from the building's third-floor bathroom. Timestamped 2 weeks ago. The night Brittany said she had dinner with the girls. I watched it. Watched my wife giggling like a teenager. Watched Carter push her against the bathroom sink. Watched her wrap herself around him, her skirt hitched up like some desperate groupie. Watched her throw her head back and scream his name so loud that the walls almost shook. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just sat there. Silent, carving the image into my memory. Because if I was going to destroy them, really destroy them, I needed to remember every disgusting second. I didn't sleep. By the time the sun started bleeding through the blinds, I was already dressed. Not in work clothes. Not in anything that would pretend today was normal. Jeans. Black t-shirt. Boots. The kind of outfit you wear when you know something is about to burn, and you're not planning to save it. At 7 a.m. sharp, I heard the familiar sound of Brittany's keys in the door. The door opened with a casual creak, like the world wasn't shattering inside. She waltzed in with a coffee in one hand, her phone in the other, laughing at some text. Probably from Carter. Probably about me. I waited. She didn't even notice me at first, too busy tapping on her screen with those polished red nails I used to kiss. When she finally looked up, she froze. "Nathan," she said, faking a smile so poorly I almost laughed. "Morning," I said. My voice was cold, mechanical. She tilted her head like she always did when she was about to lie. "It used to work on me." "Not today." "Didn't expect you home," she chirped. "Big meeting." I stepped forward, letting the silence stretch until it cracked between us. "I know," I said simply. Her face didn't change. Not guilt. Not shock. Just annoyance. "Know what, babe?" she said, dragging out the word like it tasted rotten. I held up my phone. The video. The list. The messages. Her eyes flickered for a split second. Fear? Before she smothered it with a smirk. "Oh, that," she said, waving a hand like I'd brought up a parking ticket. "You're pathetic, Nathan. You always have been." The words hit like bullets, but I didn't flinch. "Not this time. You could have just been a man about it," she snapped, setting her coffee down with a sharp clink. Instead of snooping around like some little bitch. My fists clenched at my sides. Not because of the insult. I was long past caring what she called me. But because of how casual she was. Like I was the villain. Like she was the victim. "How long?" I asked, voice low. She shrugged. "Does it matter?" "How long, Brittany?" She rolled her eyes. "Since before Aiden was born." The words didn't register at first. They just floated in the air, thick and poisonous. Before Aiden. Before the boy who called me dad and looked up at me with eyes full of trust. I stumbled back a step, like she'd physically struck me. "And Brittany?" Brittany laughed. A cruel, shallow laugh that echoed off the walls like nails on glass. "You think he's yours?" she sneered. My world tilted. "You think any of this life was real, Nathan? God, you're even dumber than I thought." I felt the rage clawing up my throat, begging to be let loose. But I swallowed it down. Because she wanted that. She wanted me to break, to scream, to beg. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. Instead, I pulled a folder from the side table and dropped it in front of her. Divorce papers. Final. Brutal. Complete. "I'm not signing those," she said, flipping her hair like a bratty teenager. "You will," I said quietly. "Or you'll wish you had." She leaned closer, eyes glittering with malice. "And if I don't?" she hissed. I smiled. For the first time in weeks, I really smiled. Then you'll lose everything. I had the video, the list, the messages, the bank fraud she committed under Carter's nose, the evidence I'd gathered all night while she was too busy playing queen of the trash heap. She stared at me, reading something new in my eyes, something final, something that scared her. Good. For the first time, Brittany realized the rules had changed. I wasn't her doormat anymore. I was the storm she never saw coming. She grabbed the papers with shaking hands, and she signed, just like Carter said. But this time, it wasn't their victory. It was the beginning of their end. The doors slammed behind her, and for a moment, the world stood still. I sat down on the couch, the same couch where Brittany used to curl up next to me, pretending to love me while dreaming of other men's hands. I stared at the empty space beside me and wondered if any of it, had ever been real. The walls felt too close, the air too thick. The silence pressed against my ribs until I thought I'd suffocate. The list she left behind lay on the coffee table. I didn't touch it. I couldn't. I already knew every scar it held. I buried my face in my hands, trying to stop the flood that was coming, but it was too late. The dam broke. Tears I didn't want. Tears I hated myself for. Tears that burned my skin with every drop. I wasn't crying for her. Not anymore. I was crying for every lie I believed. For every time I told myself she loved me when deep down, some part of me knew better. I cried for Aiden, my son, my boy who might not even be mine by blood, but who was mine in every way that mattered. I cried because I didn't know what would happen to him now, trapped between a mother who saw him as leverage and a father who wasn't even sure he had the right to call himself that anymore. I punched the wall. Once. Twice. The drywall cracked, flaking white powder onto the floor like ash. It wasn't enough. Nothing was enough to burn out the sickness growing inside me. The betrayal wasn't just a cut. It was a poison. A slow, crawling infection that turned every memory, every smile, every kiss into something rotten. I thought about the first time I met Brittany. Her laugh. Her stupid little dimple when she smiled. I thought about the night I proposed to her, how she cried, said she'd never been so sure about anything in her life. She probably laughed about that lie with Carter later. I thought about Aiden's birth. How she squeezed my hand so hard I thought it would snap. How she said, "We did it, Nathan. We made something beautiful." I thought about all the nights I stayed up with him when he was sick, all the bedtime stories, the soccer games, the scraped knees, the whispered, "I love you, Dad," when he thought I was asleep. None of that was fake. Not for me. Not ever. But what about her? Had she been smiling at Carter in her mind while I rocked our son to sleep? Had she whispered another man's name when she kissed Aiden goodnight? The questions clawed at me, each one sharper than the last. I stood up, pacing the living room like a caged animal. Everywhere I looked, there were ghosts. Her perfume lingering in the curtains. Her favorite mug sitting in the sink. Her damn hair tie still looped around the bathroom doorknob. I wanted to burn it all. I wanted to erase every piece of her from my life. Instead, I grabbed a trash bag and started ripping the memories down one by one. The photos. The cards. The notes she left on the fridge. All of it. Into the bag. Into the black hole where she belonged. By the time I was done, sweat clung to my skin and my heart felt like it had been wrung out dry. I collapsed onto the floor, surrounded by the wreckage. There was no going back. No fixing this. The marriage was dead. The love was a lie. And I was just a man buried under the ruins of everything he thought was real. But somewhere under the grief, under the heartbreak, something else stirred. A spark. Small. Weak. But alive. I wasn't dead. Not yet. And if Brittany thought she had broken me for good, she was about to learn something she should have known from the beginning. You don't bury a man like me. You just piss him off enough to dig himself out and come back stronger. I didn't sleep that night. Again. But this time, it wasn't grief keeping me awake. It was clarity. For the first time in months, maybe years, I saw things for exactly what they were. No rose-colored glasses. No excuses. Brittany wasn't a mistake. She was a choice. A series of selfish, brutal choices she made over and over again, without a second thought for the man breaking under the weight of her lies. And now, it was my turn to make some choices of my own. I poured a cup of coffee, strong enough to peel paint, and sat down at the kitchen table with a notepad. A real one. No screens. No distractions. I made 2 columns, what she took and what she couldn't touch. Under what she took, I wrote trust, marriage, family. Under what she couldn't touch, I wrote my son, my name, my soul. And then I wrote the last line in big, angry letters. My future. She didn't get that. Not even close. By noon, I had a plan. First step, Aiden. I called my lawyer, an old friend named Derek Cole, who owed me a favor from years back when I covered for him during a rough divorce. He answered on the second ring. Jesus, Nathan, you sound like hell. Save the sympathy, I said. I need to bury someone legally. Fast. Derek didn't even ask questions. He just said, come by my office. Bring everything you've got. I packed up the list, the video evidence, and the financial records Brittany thought she hid so well. Second step, money. I canceled all joint accounts. Moved every asset I could into protected trusts. Anything with her name on it froze faster than a pond in winter. By the time Brittany realized it, she wouldn't even have enough money left to buy a Happy Meal. Third step, reputation. I didn't want to play dirty. I wasn't built like her. But she left me no choice. The package to Carter's wife had already done some damage. Now, it was time to finish the job. I gathered every piece of evidence of Brittany's affairs with multiple coworkers and anonymously leaked it to Human Resources. I knew exactly how the company operated zero tolerance for moral misconduct clauses. It wouldn't just cost her job. It would cost Carter his too. And anyone dumb enough to cover for them. I wasn't just cutting out the infection. I was burning the whole disease down. Fourth step, custody. I filed for full custody of Aiden that same day, citing endangerment, instability, and moral misconduct. Every photo, every message, every disgusting secret she thought she buried, now it was ammunition. Derek promised me it would be ugly. I told him to make it uglier. By 5 p.m., my apartment was stripped of every trace of Brittany. Her clothes dumped on the porch. Her wedding ring dropped in a glass of cheap whiskey she loved so much. She could come get them if she dared. That night, I sat alone at the kitchen table, sipping a beer and staring out into the darkness. It wasn't victory yet, but it was the start of something better, something real. Brittany thought she'd reduced me to ashes. She didn't understand that some men are meant to burn. Not to die, but to be reborn into something sharper, something she would never be able to touch again. I thought about her face when she realized what I'd done, when the bank calls came, when the HR letters arrived, when the custody papers landed on her doorstep like a bomb. I hoped she cried. I hoped she screamed. I hoped, for once, she felt even a fraction of the helplessness she shoved down my throat for years. But even if she didn't, even if she kept lying, kept smiling, kept pretending she was the victim, it didn't matter anymore. I wasn't doing this for revenge. Not really. I was doing it to remind myself who I was before Brittany tried to break me. A man. A father. A storm. The man she didn't see coming. And I was just getting started. The first crack in Brittany's perfect little world came 2 days later. I was sitting at a coffee shop across the street from her office, the same office where she used to parade around like some untouchable queen, sipping my drink when I saw it happen. Security guards flanking her on both sides. A man from HR clutching a folder so thick it looked like it could break ribs. And Brittany. Brittany in her power suit, sunglasses shoved up into her hair, lips twisted into a desperate, ugly sneer. She was shouting, pointing, begging, but no one listened. They marched her out like garbage. People in the lobby pretended not to stare, but I saw it. The smirks, the whispers, the phone snapping quiet pictures to be sent to group chats later. I almost pitied her. Almost. Instead, I leaned back in my chair, took a slow sip of coffee, and smiled. That night, the real storm hit. Aiden stayed with me. He was confused, hurt, asking 1,000 questions I didn't know how to answer yet. Where's Mommy? Why is everyone mad at Mommy? Did Mommy do something bad? I tucked him into bed, kissed his forehead, and promised him one thing. No matter what happens, kiddo, I'm not going anywhere. His little hand squeezed mine like he was anchoring himself to me. Later, when the house was silent again, I sat by the window and watched the streetlights buzz in the mist. My phone buzzed on the table. It wasn't Aiden. It wasn't Derek. It was Brittany. A string of missed calls. Then texts. Please talk to me. You don't understand. They're lying about me. Nathan, answer the F***ing phone. ***. Each one more desperate than the last. It would have been easy to block her. Easy to ignore it. But I didn't. I wanted to hear it. I needed to hear how far she'd fallen. I answered on the 7th call. Her voice cracked through the line immediately. Tears. Snot. Desperation dripping like venom. Nathan, please, she sobbed. They fired me. They're suing me. Carter's wife filed charges. I have nothing. I stayed silent. I didn't mean for this to happen, she whispered, voice breaking. You have to help me. The audacity. After everything she stole. After every knife she buried in my back. She still thought she could crawl back into my life and wrap herself in my warmth. I'm not your shield anymore, I said, voice flat. Save your breath. But Aiden, she tried. You lost the right to use his name the moment you chose bathroom stalls and betrayal over your own family. Her sobbing grew louder, sloppier. It didn't move me. It sickened me. I'll make you pay, she hissed when she realized begging wouldn't work. The true Brittany emerging, the one without the pretty smile and the fake kindness. You already did, I said coldly. Now it's my turn. I hung up. No goodbye. No second chances. Just silence. The next morning, my lawyer called. The custody hearing was set. With the evidence in my hands, Brittany's employment record torched, her financial fraud exposed, her moral character shredded, it was practically guaranteed. Aiden would stay with me. She could fight. She could scream. She could lie until her voice broke. But she wasn't getting him back. Not now. Not ever. That day, I picked Aiden up from school. He ran into my arms, backpack swinging, laughter bubbling up like sunshine after a hurricane. Dad, are we gonna be okay? He asked, eyes wide, vulnerable. I lifted him up, holding him tight enough to chase every ghost away. Yeah, buddy, I said. We're gonna be better than okay. I wasn't the same man who sat quietly at his desk while his boss bragged about soiling his wife. I wasn't the same fool who signed divorce papers because someone threatened him. I was something stronger now. Something harder. And Brittany. She could choke on the ruins she built for herself. I tucked Aiden into the car, buckled him in, and drove toward a future where her name didn't poison the air anymore. It wasn't over yet. But the battle was mine now. And soon, there'd be nothing left of Brittany's kingdom but dust. Brittany didn't go quietly. She fought like a trapped animal, clawing at every wall as it caved in around her. Within a week of losing her job, the lawsuits started piling up. Harassment charges from Carter's wife. Defamation suits from coworkers she lied about to cover her tracks. Financial fraud investigations when the company dug into expense reports she thought no one would ever notice. She tried to spin it. Tried to paint herself as the victim. Tears. Screaming matches in parking lots. Posts on social media about toxic workplaces and betrayals from people she trusted. But nobody bought it. Not anymore. The world she built on manipulation and seduction crumbled beneath her stilettos, and for once, no one was rushing to catch her fall. The final blow came during the custody hearing. Courtroom, beige walls, cold air that smelled like stale coffee and broken dreams. Brittany showed up in a tight black dress like she thought she was walking into a modeling gig instead of a legal slaughterhouse. Her new lawyer, a twitchy guy who probably Googled how to win custody cases the night before, shuffled papers nervously. I sat across from her, calm, collected. Behind me, Derek. Beside me, folders packed with evidence. In front of me, Aiden's future. The judge was a no-nonsense woman named Judge Ramirez, who looked like she'd seen every lie a desperate ex could throw at her, and had zero patience for it. Brittany tried. Oh, she tried. Cried about how much she loved her son. Blamed stress and bad influences for her mistakes. Painted herself as a mother just trying to survive. Then Derek dropped the hammer. The video footage. The financial records. The photos. The witness statements. The courtroom buzzed as each piece of Brittany's mask was ripped away, revealing the rotten core underneath. Judge Ramirez didn't even need to deliberate long. Full custody to me. Supervised visitation for Brittany if she completed court-ordered therapy and parenting classes. I didn't smile. Didn't pump my fist. I just nodded. Quiet. Steady. While Brittany collapsed into her chair, mascara running like war paint, sobbing loud enough to echo through the hallways. Outside the courthouse, she tried one last time. You're ruining my life, she shrieked, heels clicking wildly as she chased after me. Everything was fine until you turned Aiden against me. I turned slowly, setting my gaze on her like I was looking at something already dead. You ruined your own life, Brittany, I said, voice calm as a tomb. You just didn't think anyone would hold you accountable. She opened her mouth to scream something else, but I didn't stay to hear it. I took Aiden's hand and walked away. Did it fix everything? No. The scars she left would take time to heal. The nights would still get lonely. The trust would still come slow. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't carrying her weight anymore. I wasn't dragging her lies behind me like a coffin tied to my ankles. I was free. Free to rebuild. Free to be a father without the shadow of betrayal poisoning every smile, every laugh, every hug. And Brittany? She was left with exactly what she gave to the people who loved her. Nothing. The last I heard, she was couch hopping between old friends who wouldn't return her calls after they realized the kind of parasite they had invited into their homes. Her name was a punchline at her old office. Her new job was slinging overpriced drinks at some second-rate bar downtown, wearing too much makeup and too little dignity. She'd become everything she thought she was too good for. And me? I tucked Aiden into bed every night with a clear conscience. I built something stronger out of the ruins she left behind. And every time the past tried to claw its way back, I reminded myself. Some people aren't worth saving. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. Some betrayals aren't mistakes. They're the clearest truths you'll ever be lucky enough to see. Some wounds never close. They don't bleed anymore, but they stay raw underneath the skin, ready to throb when the weather changes or when an old song drifts in from somewhere you weren't expecting. Brittany became one of those wounds. Not because I missed her. God, no. But because she taught me the most brutal lesson a man can learn. Love without respect isn't love at all. It's a slow death. It took months to clean the wreckage she left behind. Not just the physical things, the legal battles, the financial shrapnel, the custody mess, but the invisible pieces too. Learning how to trust myself again. Learning how to believe in my own worth after years of being gaslit and fed crumbs. There were days I didn't think I could do it. Nights I sat awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd ever feel normal again. But every morning, Aiden's voice would pull me back. Every "good morning, Dad." Every hug that nearly knocked me over. Every laugh that didn't have an ounce of sadness in it. He saved me, even when he didn't know it. One evening, about 6 months after the final court ruling, I stood in the bathroom shaving, the same bathroom where I once punched the mirror in rage. The new mirror reflected a man I barely recognized. The dead-eyed ghost was gone. The hunched shoulders, the defeated posture, all of it burned away. In its place stood someone sharper, wiser, harder. Someone who survived. I wiped the steam from the glass and leaned closer, studying the man staring back. "You made it," I said under my breath. Not because the war was over. Not because life would suddenly be easy. But because I fought, really fought, for myself and for my son. And I didn't break. Brittany's betrayal could have shattered me. Could have turned me into something bitter and ugly. Instead, it turned me into something better. Someone who wouldn't settle again. Someone who would never mistake attention for love or chaos for passion. If I could go back and erase her from my life, would I? Honestly? No. Because without Brittany, I might never have learned what real strength looked like. I would have stayed blind, complacent, trusting the wrong people because it was easier than facing the truth. Pain has a way of stripping everything away until all that's left is the core of who you really are. And my core was solid. Unbreakable. A few months later, I started dating again. Slowly. Carefully. Not because I needed someone to fill the empty space, but because I wanted to share the life I rebuilt with someone who actually deserved it. Someone who saw me, all of me, and didn't try to use my heart as a doormat. The first time I introduced Aiden to her, he looked up at me with wide eyes and whispered, "She's nice, Dad. She smiles with her eyes." And in that moment, I realized something important. It wasn't just about surviving Brittany. It was about showing my son what real love looks like. Respect, kindness, loyalty. Not fake promises whispered in dirty bathrooms. Real love. Real life. If there's anything I could tell the man I used to be, the one sitting silently at his desk while his boss laughed about defiling his wife, it would be this. You're stronger than you think. You're worth more than you know. And the worst day of your life will become the reason you finally start living. As for Brittany, I don't hate her anymore. I don't even think about her, not really. She's just a cautionary tale now. A ghost story I tell myself when the nights get too quiet and I start to forget what I fought so hard to build. She wanted to destroy me. She failed. In the end, she destroyed herself. And me? I just kept walking past the ashes, past the lies, into a life she could never touch. A real life. A better one. And this time, it was mine. I was halfway across the world, sitting in a dim hotel lounge in Berlin, nursing a whiskey, when my phone lit up with Amanda's name. I almost didn't answer. 8 years of marriage had trained me to expect nothing but nagging or silence whenever she reached out these days. But something, call it a sixth sense, or just the stale taste of regret, made me swipe the screen. Her voice hit me like a crowbar. "I'm leaving you." Amanda spat, words tumbling out so fast they almost slurred together. I'm with Tyler now. We're having a baby. Oh, and I sold your house and your car. You're welcome. I just sat there, staring out at the black, rain-smeared windows. I could almost hear the smug little smirk she always wore when she thought she'd won. There was a beat of silence, her breathing heavy, like she was expecting me to lose my mind, to beg, to cry. I took a slow sip of my drink and replied, calmly, almost bored. All right. Nothing more. No rage. No begging. No drama. I could almost hear her frown through the phone. Is that it? That's all you have to say? I smiled thinly, the kind of smile you wear at a funeral when the casket finally closes. That's it, Amanda. Congratulations. I hung up before she could spit more poison. That was the moment everything inside me shifted. I didn't feel broken. I didn't feel betrayed. I felt free. But Amanda panicked. 2 days later, as my flight landed back at JFK, I stepped off the plane into the bitter New York wind, only to see her standing at the arrival's gate, her face pale, her mascara smeared like she'd been crying for hours. The airport buzzed around us, people rushing past, lives moving on, but she was frozen there, clutching her phone like it was a life raft. She spotted me and bolted forward, screaming like a madwoman. Jason, she shrieked, shoving past a security guard. Jason, what happened? What did you do? People stared. Some even pulled out their phones to film the train wreck unfolding. I kept walking until I was 2 feet away from her. I dropped my carry-on bag onto the tile floor with a heavy thud. Everything went just as I planned, I said coldly, voice cutting sharper than a blade. She staggered back like I'd slapped her. What do you mean planned? She shrieked. I didn't answer. I didn't know her that. I just looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time in years, I saw Amanda for who she was, a shallow, greedy, lying piece of work who thought the world owed her everything for simply existing. Her dirty blonde hair was frizzed from stress, her fake designer bag slipping off her shoulder, her tight jeans and low-cut shirt screaming desperation rather than power. Tyler, the loser she left me for, probably had no idea what kind of venom he'd just invited into his life. And as for the house, the car, let her keep them. They were booby-trapped. But I'll get to that later. Amanda was still yelling, tears running down her face, trying to piece together how her master plan had detonated in her own face. I watched her fall apart with the kind of detached satisfaction you can only feel when you finally see the devil lose her mask. Inside, I felt strangely serene. But this was only the beginning. You see, finding out she was cheating wasn't the worst part. It was how I found out, and who helped her do it. That was going to make the next few days very, very interesting. It started a month before the trip. Little things. Amanda used to barely touch her phone around me. Now it never left her hand. Always flipping it face down, typing with that sly little smile she thought I didn't notice. Then came the late nights. Girls' nights out, she said, tossing the words like candy. Coming back smelling like cheap whiskey and some cologne that sure as hell wasn't mine. I played dumb, smiled, nodded, acted like I bought every lame excuse she threw at me. Meanwhile, I was quietly collecting everything. The neighbor across the street, Mrs. Patel, bless her nosy soul, sent me a video one night. Amanda, wobbling drunk at 2 a.m., climbing into a black Dodge Charger with some meathead wearing a backwards cap. Not exactly the yoga retreat she claimed. Then there were the credit card charges, hotels in the middle of nowhere, lingerie stores I knew damn well weren't for me, restaurant bills for two when she claimed she was having a self-care day. But the cherry on top? I hacked into our home security cameras, the ones Amanda thought I'd forgotten to set up properly, and watched, in glorious HD, as she brought Tyler into our bedroom, giggling like a teenager while he stripped her down and they fumbled onto our bed. Our bed. The one we picked out together when we were still pretending this marriage meant something. I sat there that night, glass of bourbon in hand, staring at the screen while she writhed under him, moaning loud enough to wake the neighbors. Not even trying to hide it. Like she wanted the whole world to see. And you know what I felt? Nothing. Not sadness. Not rage. Just this cold, hollow emptiness. Like watching a stranger ruin their own life and knowing you'd already packed your parachute. So I started planning. First move. I signed over the house and car to Amanda through a fake legal document she was too stupid to read properly. What she didn't know was the liens I quietly placed on both. Debts she would inherit without even realizing it. Taxes unpaid. Mortgages defaulted. She thought she was stealing from me. All she did was chain herself to a financial anchor she couldn't lift. Second move. I emptied our joint bank account, funneling every dollar into an offshore account under a business entity she couldn't touch. Third move. I prepared my own escape, cleaned out my personal stuff, boxed up the things that mattered, staged it so the house still looked lived in. All while booking a 3-week business trip abroad that would give me the perfect alibi. When Amanda called me in Berlin, laughing into the receiver about how she was finally free, how she was carrying Tyler's child, and building a real family, I just nodded to myself. Let her have it. Let her think she won. Because when the bills came due, when Tyler found out Amanda wasn't the prize she thought she was, when the house was foreclosed, when the IRS came knocking, when the banks froze her accounts, I wouldn't be there. I'd be a ghost. Still, standing at JFK, watching her crumple under the realization that her fairy tale was a goddamn horror story, wasn't enough. Not yet. Because there was still one thing I needed to do before I could truly walk away. Something that would finally, permanently, rip the mask off her perfect little life. And it was going to happen tonight. Amanda followed me through the airport like a stray dog, screeching my name, grabbing at my jacket. I didn't even flinch. I just kept walking, letting the automatic doors part for me like I was Moses, and she was a plague I was leaving behind. Outside, my buddy Chris pulled up in his old black Ram pickup. He barely glanced at Amanda, just popped the door open for me, and cranked the music louder to drown out her screaming. I climbed in, tossed my bag in the back, and we pulled away from the curb like the city itself couldn't get rid of us fast enough. Man, Chris said, shaking his head. She looks like hell. Yeah, I muttered. Inside matches the outside now. We drove in silence for a while, the weight of everything heavier than the February air. My fists clenched and unclenched on my knees, fighting the urge to turn back, to scream at her, to break something. But no, not yet. There was a plan, and the final move was tonight. Chris dropped me off 2 blocks away from the house. I didn't want Amanda knowing where I was staying yet. Let her stew. Let her wonder. I made my way to the small Airbnb I'd rented under a fake name. Inside, I kicked off my boots, tossed my jacket over a chair, and powered up the burner laptop I'd left behind. The one with everything I needed. Emails, text threads, bank statements, video files, all carefully archived, all ready to burn her fake little world down. It wasn't enough to walk away. She needed to know what it felt like to be humiliated, to be powerless. Around 10 p.m., Amanda started blowing up my phone. Call after call, text after text. Amanda, Jason, please. Amanda, we can talk. Amanda, I made a mistake. Amanda, where are you? Amanda, Jason, please answer me. I stared at the screen, letting the desperate little bubbles pop up one after another. God, the audacity. This was the same woman who, just a week ago, had called me dead weight, who laughed with her friends about how easy it was to replace me. And now? Now the fire she'd started was climbing up her own damn legs. I opened the group chat she had with her so-called sisters, Brooke, Haley, and Jessica, the same 3 witches who encouraged every filthy betrayal. Tyler had been just the latest in a long list. And thanks to some very cooperative phone cloning software, I had it all. Every filthy text, every joke at my expense, every time she bragged about making Jason eat *T and smile. I smiled grimly. Tonight, everyone she knew would get a personal front row seat. It took less than 5 minutes to schedule the mass email. I attached the videos, the screenshots, the bank fraud, the messages, the pictures, all of it. Subject line, meet the real Amanda. Scheduled send time, 6 a.m., Monday morning. Right when her parents, her boss, her friends, her yoga class, and even her Instagram followers would be checking their phones. It was perfect. Calculated. I leaned back in the cheap armchair, staring up at the cracked ceiling, breathing deep. Freedom. But something kept gnawing at the edge of my mind. One last thing. Closure. I needed to see her face when she realized she wasn't the predator anymore. She was prey. So I picked up my phone and texted her back for the first time in days. Meet me at the house. 1 hour. Come alone. Almost instantly. Amanda. Okay, thank you. I closed my eyes and let the darkness wrap around me like an old friend. Because tonight, I wasn't coming to beg. I wasn't coming to forgive. I was coming to bury the past. And Amanda? She was going to help me dig the grave. I parked a block away from the house. No headlights. No sound. Just me, the cold night, and the weight of everything that had rotted between us. The porch light was on. She was already there, pacing back and forth like a caged animal, her arms wrapped around herself. When she spotted me, she stumbled forward like some lost, broken thing. For a second, for just a damn second, I almost felt pity. Then I remembered the video, her laughing as Tyler ripped her clothes off on our bed. I stepped onto the porch. She reached out for me. I took a step back. Inside, I said. Her lips trembled. She looked around like she expected this to be a joke, like Tyler would jump out and save her. Nobody was coming. We walked into the house, empty and cold. Most of the furniture was gone. Amanda had sold what she could and trashed the rest. The walls echoed with every step, hollow like the promises she used to make. She turned to me, tears already welling up. Jason, listen, I didn't mean it. I was confused. You were always working, always busy. I felt alone. I let her ramble, let the lies pour out of her mouth like sewage. I thought Tyler loved me, she cried. I thought it was real. But it's not. He's gone, Jason. He just wanted money. I raised a hand, and she snapped her mouth shut like a trained dog. You thought you could burn everything down and dance in the ashes, I said, voice low and sharp. You thought you could spit on me and walk away clean. Her face crumpled. I made a mistake. Please, we can fix this. We can start over. I laughed. It wasn't a normal laugh. It was hollow, broken, almost a bark. You sold our home, I said. You sold my car. You stole my money. You mocked me with your friends. You let some greasy half-wit knock you up and bragged about it like it was a trophy. She shook her head frantically. No, I didn't, Jason. I was stupid. I didn't mean any of it. You meant every ing word, I said coldly. You just didn't think you'd have to pay for it. The silence between us stretched so tight it could snap. She tried a different tactic. She sauntered closer, slow, fake sweet, the same way she used to when she wanted something. Her hand landed on my chest, nails trailing lightly over my shirt. You still love me, she whispered. I can feel it. We're meant for each other. I didn't move. You remember how good we were together? She purred, inching closer, her mouth brushing my ear. We can be even better. I missed you, missed your hands on me. I pulled back just enough to see her face. That smirk, that smug little glint like she thought she was winning again. And then I said the words I'd been saving. Check your phone. Her eyes flickered with confusion, but she pulled it from her pocket. I watched as her face drained of color. The email notification was right there, glowing like a bomb about to go off. She opened it, and she saw it all. The videos, the texts, the screenshots, the receipts. Amanda's mouth dropped open. She staggered back, clutching the phone like it was a live grenade. No, Jason, please, you can't. I stepped closer, looming over her. It's already sent, I said. Everyone you know, everyone you care about, they're gonna know exactly who you are. She let out a choked sob, dropping to her knees, ugly crying, snot and mascara painting her face into a horror show. Please, she screamed. I'll do anything. Just don't ruin me. Jason, please. I crouched down so we were eye level. You ruined yourself, I said quietly. She grabbed at my leg, desperate, pathetic. We can fix this, Jason. We can. I yanked my leg free, standing tall over her crumpled form. No, I said. I'm not your ing safety net anymore. She screamed after me as I walked out the door, a sound so raw and broken it should have made me feel something. It didn't. I didn't even look back. The night swallowed me whole, and I let it. By the time I hit the street, my hands were shaking, not from regret, not from fear, but from the sheer release of it all. 8 years. 8 years of biting my tongue, of swallowing my pride, of pretending we were still the golden couple everyone envied. 8 years of covering for her lies, her cruelty, her empty promises. It was over. Finally, completely over. My phone vibrated like a dying insect in my pocket. I didn't even have to look to know it was Amanda. I let it buzz itself into silence. As I turned the corner, Chris was already waiting, engine idling. He gave me a look, one that didn't ask questions, didn't need answers, and I climbed in. Done? He asked. Done. We drove in silence. The city lights smeared across the windshield like bleeding colors, the cold gnawing at the edges of my jacket. Somewhere in the distance, I heard sirens. Life went on. Without her. Without the mess. But Amanda wasn't finished. Not even close. When we pulled up outside the Airbnb, she was already there. Her little silver Civic parked crooked in the street, her silhouette slumped over the steering wheel like a broken doll. I sighed, rubbing my eyes. I should have known she'd come looking for me. Amanda didn't lose gracefully. Hell, she didn't lose at all if she could help it. I got out of the truck, Chris muttering, "You good?" "Yeah," I said. "Just need to finish this." As I approached the car, Amanda bolted out, wild-eyed, mascara streaked down to her chin, her clothes wrinkled and stained. She looked like she'd been dragged through hell, and for once, it wasn't my doing. "You can't do this," she shrieked. "Jason, please. Think about everything we had. Everything you burned," I corrected. She stumbled after me, grabbing at my sleeve. "I'll fix it. I'll make it right. I'll tell everyone it was lies. I'll say you made it all up. Just delete the email. Jason, please." I stared at her, really stared, and for the first time, I realized how small she truly was. Not just physically, but inside. Empty. Hollow. Built on illusions and fake smiles and cheap thrills. "You think saying sorry rewinds the clock?" I said, my voice low, almost pitying. "You think it erases all the nights you were out there, crawling into other men's beds while I stayed home wondering what I did wrong?" She shook her head violently, tears flying. "It didn't mean anything," she sobbed. "They meant nothing. You're my real love. Tyler. He used me. It was a mistake. Jason, please." A bitter laugh clawed its way up my throat. "You didn't make a mistake," I said. "You made 1,000 choices." I turned and started walking toward the house. I didn't have time for this theater anymore. Behind me, I heard the Civic door slam. I thought maybe, finally, she'd given up. Instead, the tires screeched as she floored it toward me. I barely had time to dive onto the sidewalk before she shot past, missing me by inches. Chris was already out of the truck, sprinting toward her. Amanda slammed the brakes, the car fishtailing wildly, and threw it into park. She jumped out, screaming like a banshee. "You ruined my life," she shrieked. "You ruined me." Chris grabbed her before she could lunge at me. She thrashed in his arms, kicking and spitting, a full-blown meltdown. Neighbors peeked out their windows. Someone down the block turned on a porch light. Dogs barked. I stood there, brushing the gravel off my jacket, watching Amanda scream and sob and tear at her hair like she could rip the humiliation out by the roots. It was sad. It was pathetic. It was exactly what she deserved. Chris shoved her back into the Civic and slammed the door. She pounded her fists against the windows as he turned to me. "You want me to call someone?" he asked, meaning the cops. I shook my head. Let her rot in her own mess. Amanda finally peeled off into the night, tires screaming, the smell of burnt rubber hanging in the cold air. I watched her taillights disappear around the corner. And then, for the first time in years, I smiled. A real smile. Not because it was over, but because it was mine now. My life. My future. My peace. And nothing she did, no lie, no tantrum, no last pathetic attempt to claw her way back, could ever touch it again. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't even try. I sat on the couch in the tiny Airbnb, staring at the ceiling while the clock ticked louder and louder in the silence. Every time I closed my eyes, flashes of it all would hit me. Amanda's face twisted in rage, the texts, the videos, the way she tried to run me down like I was nothing but an obstacle. But underneath all of it, the anger, the disgust, the betrayal, there was a strange calm. I wasn't broken. I wasn't defeated. I was free. At dawn, I grabbed a coffee from the corner shop and walked the empty streets. New York before sunrise is something else. The city stripped bare, honest in a way people rarely are. No horns, no crowds, no fake smiles. Just the raw skeleton of it all. It fit my mood perfectly. When the first light cracked the sky open, my phone started buzzing. Friends, family, even a few people I hadn't heard from in years. The email had landed, and it hit like a *****ing bomb. My brother Ethan was the first to call. He didn't even say hello, just launched straight into a furious rant about Amanda, about how he always knew something was off about her, how he wanted to drive over and flatten Tyler's smug face into the pavement. I let him rant. I didn't have the energy to feed the fire. I wasn't interested in revenge anymore. It was over. The fallout was already happening without me lifting another finger. Amanda's Instagram, once filled with posed pictures of her perfect life, was a war zone. Comments pouring in, people calling her out, some laughing, some furious they'd ever believed her act. She'd deleted half her posts by noon. By 2, her account was gone entirely. Her job, too. I heard through a mutual friend that her company fired her on the spot for ethical violations once they got wind of her little extracurricular activities. Apparently banging your boss's nephew isn't great for corporate image. And Tyler? Turns out the golden boy had a rap sheet a mile long. Assault, fraud, even some shady accusations that never made it to court. Good luck building that real family, Amanda. As the day wore on, Chris showed up again, tossing a greasy burger at me like it was some peace offering. Eat, he ordered. You look like you've been through a meat grinder. I managed a half smile and bit into it. Grease and salt, and something close to normalcy. Feels weird, I admitted, wiping my hands on a napkin. Like, I should be more pissed. Or more broken. Chris shrugged, cracking open a soda. Maybe you're just done, he said. Really done. Sometimes that's scarier than being angry. I nodded, staring out the window. He wasn't wrong. The idea of moving on, really moving on, scared me more than anything Amanda had done. Because it meant letting go of everything. The good memories, the fake hopes, the future I thought we had. It meant admitting that I wasted years loving a ghost. But it also meant I was free to start over. No more walking on eggshells. No more wondering if tonight was another girl's night or another betrayal. No more lies. No more Amanda. That night, I took one final trip back to the house. The keys still worked. Amanda hadn't gotten around to changing the locks yet. Typical. Always thinking 10 steps behind. The place was trashed. Furniture gone, walls scuffed, trash littered across the floor. It smelled stale, like cheap perfume and old wine. I wandered through the ruins of our life, each step echoing too loud. In the bedroom, our bedroom, I found a crumpled photo album half buried under a pile of clothes. Flipping it open, I saw our wedding photos. Amanda in her white dress, me in my black suit, both of us smiling so wide it almost hurt to look at. For a second, my chest tightened. For a second, the old hurt flickered to life. But then I closed the album, dropped it back into the pile, and turned away. I didn't need to hold on to the ashes. I didn't need to carry the corpse of what we used to be. I locked the door behind me and walked away without looking back. I didn't own that house anymore. I didn't owe it anything. Amanda could keep the wreckage. I was building something new. And this time, it was going to be mine alone. The days that followed moved strangely slow, like I was walking underwater. I signed the divorce papers Amanda had so thoughtfully sent me overseas. Felt almost poetic, considering how hard she tried to humiliate me. I didn't even bother reading them. Let her think she won something. Let her take the scraps. Meanwhile, I stayed in the Airbnb, setting up a new life from scratch. New bank accounts, new address, new phone number. I wiped every trace of her from my world like she was a virus. Friends picked sides, but most stayed with me. The ones who didn't, well, good riddance. If they believed Amanda's bullshit after everything, they were never friends to begin with. The final time Amanda tried to reach out was a week later. She showed up at the Airbnb, wild-eyed and desperate, wearing some low-cut dress like she thought flashing skin would erase the past. "I'm pregnant," she cried, hand on her stomach. "Jason, you can't leave me like this. Please. I made mistakes, but you're the only real thing I ever had." I didn't flinch, didn't blink. "Tyler's the father," I said flatly. "Or maybe one of the other guys you crawled into bed with. Either way, not my problem." Her face twisted into something ugly, pure rage and bitterness. The real Amanda bursting through whatever pathetic act she thought would work. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "You'll be alone forever." I stared at her, letting the words hang in the cold morning air. "Better alone," I said slowly, "than chained to someone who sees love as a game." She stood there shaking, teeth clenched, fists balled up like a child about to throw a tantrum. But there was nothing left to throw. No lies left to tell. No bridges left to burn. I turned my back on her one last time. She didn't follow. She didn't scream. She just stood there as I walked away, the distance between us finally stretching so far it would never close again. After that, everything clicked into place faster than I thought it would. I rented a small apartment in a part of the city Amanda never liked. "Too boring," she said once. Perfect, I thought. Quiet. Real. I bought secondhand furniture, built shelves with my own hands, burned sage in the corners just to kill whatever old ghosts might have tried to sneak in with me. For the first time in years, I woke up without dread clawing at my gut. No more checking my phone for late-night lies. No more staring at the ceiling, wondering what I wasn't good enough for. Just peace. And myself. Funny thing was, once I stopped dragging Amanda's dead weight behind me, everything else got lighter too. I reconnected with old friends, the real ones, started picking up hobbies I abandoned during the marriage. Painting, hiking, even cooking for myself without hearing her snide comments about how pathetic it was for a man to eat alone. I wasn't eating alone. I was eating free. One night, sitting on the fire escape with a beer in hand, watching the city hum quietly beneath me, I thought about it all. The betrayal, the humiliation, the way she laughed behind my back while planning my ruin. And for the first time, I felt grateful, not for what she did, but for what she showed me. Amanda showed me what love wasn't. She showed me what loyalty wasn't. She showed me that real love, real partnership, isn't built on manipulation, on games, on lies whispered between fake kisses. It's built on truth, on respect, on choosing each other every damn day, not just when it's easy. She couldn't give me that. Maybe she never could. Maybe she never even wanted to. And that's fine, because now I know what I deserve. Now I know the warning signs, the little cracks in the mask, the red flags I ignored because I wanted so badly to believe in something that was never real. And if I could say one thing to the guy I used to be, the guy who sat on that couch, staring at the security footage of his wife selling herself to another man, I'd say this. Thank you for surviving. Thank you for not letting her destroy you. Thank you for finally choosing yourself. The past will always be a scar, but scars are proof you healed. They don't hurt anymore. They remind you how strong you are. So here's my advice. If you're reading this and feeling that same cold, hollow ache I used to know too well, if they betray you, let them go. If they lie to you, don't beg for the truth. If they humiliate you, don't waste a second trying to fix their brokenness. Walk away. Not for them. For you. Because the second you stop trying to save someone who never cared about drowning you, the second you choose yourself over their chaos, that's the second you start living again. And trust me, there's nothing sweeter than breathing free air after years of choking on someone else's poison. There's nothing sweeter than waking up one day and realizing you're finally home, inside yourself, where nobody, not even the worst liar you ever loved, can touch you again. You better not show up to my birthday dinner, her message read, right there in the family WhatsApp group, for everyone to see. All my friends' husbands are successful except you. You chose to be a factory worker, and I no longer see you as my husband. I reread those lines about 5 times. My thumb hovered over the screen like it might do something to soften the blow. My stomach twisted in knots, and a cold, slow burn crawled up my chest. But I didn't reply. Not one word. I just stared at it, letting silence become my shield. That wasn't just some careless outburst. That was a statement, public, deliberate, venom-coated. And everyone in the group saw it. Her sisters, her mother, her smug friends. Even my younger brother, Nathan, who sent me a private message 2 minutes later. Dude. WTF. I sat there in the break room of the plant, still in my work uniform, grease on my hands, phone buzzing in my lap like a bomb that had already gone off. No one knew it yet, but that message marked the end of something. Not just a marriage, not just respect, but the illusion that I was ever truly loved by the woman I married. Her name was Madison. Madison K. Thompson. We met when I was still working overtime to help my mom pay medical bills. I didn't have a degree, didn't have a shiny car, but I had plans, grit, and I thought that counted for something. Apparently, it didn't. The birthday dinner was at some fancy rooftop restaurant downtown, one of those places where the food is microscopic but the bill is massive. I had no intention of going even before she warned me off like some beggar she was embarrassed of. But here's the thing. She could have just said nothing, could have just quietly ignored me, could have sent a text privately, but she wanted it public. She wanted me humiliated, and I didn't give her the pleasure. Instead, I used that night for something else. While she was clinking glasses with her lawyer friends and their smooth-talking finance husbands, I was at home going through the old photo albums she didn't care to take when she moved out. Every page hit like a gut punch. Our first trip to Colorado. The Christmas where I built her that custom bookshelf with my own hands. The ultrasound picture of our daughter that we never had. She said I chose to be a factory worker. Like it was some lazy fallback. What she didn't mention was the offer I turned down from a high-paying firm in Chicago when she begged me not to relocate because she couldn't live away from her family. I gave up that job for her. She repaid me with disgust. At that moment, I knew I wouldn't fight for her anymore. I wouldn't try to understand her lies or decode her contempt. No more pleading. No more chasing. Just distance. Clean. Cold. Final. So I quietly moved away. Found a smaller place across town. Signed the divorce papers when they came without a word. She expected drama, maybe a breakdown, maybe even a slap of jealousy to feed her ego. What she got instead was silence. But life has a sick sense of humor. Or maybe perfect timing. Because years later, just when the dust had settled, and she thought she had climbed out of my orbit for good, Madison came crawling back. And when she did, it wasn't just karma. It was justice, the kind that twists the knife slow. You'll see. She messaged me out of nowhere. No apology. No small talk. Just, "Hey, do you still work at Falcon Engineering?" I stared at the screen, the memory of her last message still branded in my mind like a scar that never fully healed. For a second, I considered blocking her right then and there. But curiosity has claws, and something about the tone in that message reeked of desperation. I waited 5 hours before replying. Just one word. Why? She answered in less than a minute. I might need a favor. Something came up with the house. Can we talk? Funny how fast "you're not my husband" turns into "can we talk" when life stops playing in your favor. I didn't reply. Not that day. Not the next. But I knew I'd see her again, because she wasn't reaching out for me. She was reaching because something had fallen apart, and I was her last option. When she showed up at my shop a week later, I wasn't surprised. She walked in like she still had some kind of power over me. Same smirk. Same fake elegance. Designer bag. Flawless makeup. But the eyes, they weren't the same. They were tired. Hollow. And something inside them screamed, "I lost." "Tyler," she said, voice soft like we hadn't been through a war. I didn't stop what I was doing. Just kept adjusting the machine like her presence was background noise. "You look good," she added. I finally looked up. "Why are you here, Madison?" She took a breath like she'd rehearsed this. "I made mistakes." "I see that now." I was angry, and I lashed out. "But things are different." Things. The guy I was seeing. It didn't work out. He left. Of course, he did. What does that have to do with me? I thought maybe we could talk. I thought maybe you'd want to try again. It was surreal. This was the same woman who couldn't stand the thought of being seen with a man in overalls. The same woman who laughed at my calloused hands. The same one who said out loud, "I don't see you as my husband anymore." I stepped closer, close enough for her to flinch, like she expected me to yell, break down, do something dramatic. But I just looked her in the eye and said calmly, "No." Her mouth parted, stunned. "No. I'm not angry, Madison. I'm not bitter. I'm not the same man you left. But I'm sure as hell not yours anymore." Her lips trembled. That old confidence was gone, cracked and fragile. "You don't even want to talk?" "There's nothing to talk about. You divorced a man because he worked with his hands. You chased a fantasy, and it broke you. I didn't change. You did." She blinked fast, probably to keep from crying, and for a second I almost felt bad, until I remembered everything. Every cold glance. Every insult in front of friends. Every time she told me I wasn't enough. Then I remembered her birthday dinner and how I spent it alone with our memories while she toasted with men in suits. She left in silence. And I didn't watch her go. But this wasn't the end. Because 2 days later, her mother called me. And that call changed everything. "Tyler, sweetheart. I know we haven't talked in a while, but I need to ask you something." I was in the middle of helping a client install a custom railing when her voice came through my Bluetooth headset. I hadn't heard from Madison's mother, Evelyn, in years, not since the divorce. She'd always played the neutral card during our marriage, pretending to be sweet to my face while cheering Madison's choices behind the scenes. So I didn't expect concern in her voice. Not real concern. I wiped my hands on my work pants and stepped outside to take the call properly. "What's going on?" "It's Madison. She's in a bit of trouble." "She didn't tell you everything." I almost laughed. "That doesn't shock me. She's about to lose the house. Apparently, her business partner ran off with investor money. There's a lawsuit, and now the bank is coming after her. She doesn't have anyone else." I leaned against my truck and took a long breath. "What do you want me to do about that?" "She needs help, Tyler. She thought maybe you." "I'm not bailing her out." There was a long pause. Then, in a voice a lot colder, Evelyn said, She was your wife. Yeah, was. And back then, she threw me away like trash. She didn't want a man who worked with steel. Now that the golden boy's gone, I'm suddenly useful again. I'm not saying what she did was right, Evelyn said. But she's desperate. Maybe she should have thought about that before humiliating me in front of the entire family chat and marrying a man who couldn't tell the truth if it bit him. Tyler. I'm not defending her. But there's something else you need to know. She's not just broke, she's sick. I froze. What? She's been keeping it quiet, but the stress has made her condition worse. She's been having these fainting episodes. She doesn't trust anyone around her anymore. She asked for you because, deep down, you were the only one who ever really stood by her. I didn't answer right away, because I didn't know what the hell to feel. Some twisted part of me felt vindicated. Another part just felt tired. Later that night, I found myself driving past her old house, our house, back in the day. The yard was overgrown. The porch light was out. There was a foreclosure notice taped to the mailbox. The very same porch where I once fixed her fairy light display for a dinner party she threw for her corporate friends, smiling through their smug glances and finance jokes. And now? The empire she left me for had crumbled. But this wasn't pity. This was something else. Something quieter. A kind of peace. She had finally run out of people to lie to. And I didn't need revenge. She was already living it. A few nights later, she called. Not texted, called. That alone told me how low she'd sunk. Madison never called unless she needed something. I almost let it ring out, but something in me wanted to hear her voice, not out of longing, but to finally see if she'd cracked beneath all that fake polish. I answered on the fourth ring. Tyler. Her voice was small. No edge, no smirk. Just hollow. Yeah, I didn't know who else to call. You already said that. Silence. I could hear her breathing. Uneven. Shaky. I didn't mean to hurt you like that. Now that made me laugh. Quiet, bitter. You didn't mean to send a group message calling me a failure and warning me not to show up? That just slipped out of your perfectly manicured fingers. I was angry, she whispered. I thought I deserved more. That we deserved more. You wanted more. Not we. Don't lump me into your delusions. Another pause. Then, softly, I'm scared, Tyler. That stopped me cold. She'd always been fire. Brutal. Sharp-tongued and immovable. I'd never once heard fear in her voice. Even when we fought, even when she packed her bags, she walked like she owned the room. Now, she sounded like someone standing barefoot on ice, hoping it wouldn't crack. Scared of what? Everything's gone. The guy I left you for? He used my name to take loans, ran up debts, then vanished. I've got creditors calling, lawyers banging on my door. I can't sleep. I keep thinking someone's going to show up and take my car, she stopped. Her voice broke. I even got evicted from the condo. I'm at a friend's place, but she wants me out next week. I didn't say a word. I know you hate me, she said finally. And maybe I deserve that. But I never thought you'd be the one I'd lose and miss the most. I closed my eyes. She had taken everything I gave her and tossed it aside, laughed at my loyalty, made me feel like I was a mistake she regretted. And now, she wanted to rewrite it all? I don't hate you, Madison, I said. But I also don't owe you anything. You were the best thing I ever had, she choked out. And I didn't see it until it was too late. I let her sit in that silence. Because there was nothing left to say. Her words were years too late, and her remorse couldn't unburn what she torched. The next day, I sent her one final message. Get help. Not from me, but from someone who doesn't have a graveyard where your apology is supposed to be. And then I blocked her number. Because the factory worker she shamed had finally finished building something she could never tear down again. His dignity. Weeks passed. Fall crept in, and the air smelled of metal and wood chips, on a sense, the kind you can't fake with perfume or power. I threw myself into work. My shop expanded. I landed 2 major contracts through word of mouth. Nothing flashy. Just steady, growing respect. The kind you build brick by brick. One Saturday, I stopped by my brother Nathan's place to help him install shelves. While we worked, his wife, Claire, peeked in holding a tray of coffee and said, "Did you hear about Madison?" I didn't look up. What about her? She's been calling around. Friends, old neighbors, even Evelyn. Apparently, she's trying to find a lawyer who will help her declare bankruptcy. Nathan chuckled under his breath. From rooftop birthday dinners to government aid. Karma's a funny lady. I didn't smile. Not because I pitied her, but because deep down, I knew something like this was coming. A woman like Madison, who lived in mirrors and empty praise, wasn't built for consequences. She was built for appearances. And those were cracking. That night, I drove out past the old church where we got married. It was still standing, weathered now, peeling paint, but solid. Like me. I parked, sat in silence. It wasn't grief that hit me. It wasn't even anger. It was clarity. I remembered how she used to talk to the waiter like he was beneath her. How she mocked my work clothes when her friends were around. How she once told me, during a fight, that she could have married a doctor if she hadn't settled so fast. And I remembered how I still came home that night. Still made her dinner. Still held her when she cried about a client or a deadline or a stupid socialite who didn't tag her in a photo. I gave everything. And she looked at it like garbage. Now, all she had left were the shadows of the men she chased and the man she abandoned. A few days later, I got a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A letter. The handwriting was shaky but familiar. Tyler, it began. If you're reading this, it means I ran out of numbers to call and people to pretend with. I stopped reading, tore it in half, and tossed it in the fireplace. I didn't need her words anymore. I didn't need closure. Because the truth was, I already had it. Not in some grand epiphany. Not in revenge. But in the fact that I didn't miss her. Not one bit. And when a man can say that about the woman he once vowed his life to, that's not bitterness. That's freedom. It was early December when I saw her again. I was at the city hardware store, picking up supplies for a custom staircase job. The aisle smelled like sawdust and machine oil, my kind of perfume. I turned a corner near the paint section, and there she was. Madison. She didn't see me at first. She was staring at a shelf of clearance light fixtures like they held the answer to a question she was too tired to ask. Her coat looked borrowed. Her hair wasn't done. No jewelry. No nails. No gloss. She looked real. Not in a good way, just stripped. Like the glossy finish had finally worn off, and underneath it, there was just a person. She finally noticed me and froze. We stared at each other for a long, brittle second. Then she gave a soft, awkward smile. Tyler. I nodded. Madison. Have you been? I'm good. She looked down at the box of cheap bulbs in her cart and gave a breathy laugh. Yeah, I figured. She didn't say anything else. Just stood there like she was waiting for me to throw her a rope. Maybe invite her to talk. Maybe ask about her situation. But I didn't. I just turned to leave. Wait. I stopped but didn't turn around. I just wanted to say, thank you, she said quietly. For not fighting me. Back then. For letting me go. I think if you hadn't, I would have dragged us both down a lot worse. I turned back slightly, enough to look her in the eye. You already did. She winced. And then nodded. Yeah, I know. Then I walked away. And this time, she didn't try to stop me. Driving home, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel anything close to revenge. What I felt was confirmation. That the right thing, the hardest thing, was also the most necessary one. I had let her go years ago. Now I knew she was never coming back. And more importantly, I didn't want her to. Winter rolled in hard that year. The kind that stings your lungs when you breathe too deep. My hands cracked from the cold, even through gloves, but it felt honest. Pain with a purpose. I spent most nights in the shop, welding until after midnight, the radio humming old blues songs in the background while sparks lit the dark like fireflies. I didn't hear her name again for months. Not until the city council invited me to a local builders recognition event. They wanted to honor contractors who'd helped rebuild parts of the downtown area after the storm last spring. I wasn't big on ceremonies, but the community meant something to me more than I ever realized before. I said yes. It was a clean affair. Small banquet room. White tablecloths. Faces I hadn't seen in years. One of the speakers was a woman named Julia, a city planner I'd worked with before. She smiled, called me up to the front, and handed me a plaque that read, "For excellence in craft and community." The applause was polite. A few people I didn't even know shook my hand. I smiled, nodded, stepped back into the crowd. Then I saw her. Back row. Near the exit. Madison. Wearing black. No makeup. Hair pinned back. She looked older than she was. Worn, not in a way that time does to you, but in the way regret does. And she was clapping, slow, like the sound was more for her than for me. Our eyes locked again. And this time, she looked away first. After the event, I took the long way home through the empty streets. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. I already knew who it was before I looked. Madison, you deserve that. I'm happy for you. I put the phone down without replying. Not because I was angry, but because I truly didn't care anymore. And when a man can walk away from the ghost of the woman he once would have died for, when he doesn't carry hate or bitterness or ache, just calm, that's when you know he made it out. Spring came early that year. The snow melted fast, and the streets smelled like wet earth and new beginnings. My shop picked up more business than ever: custom railings, furniture orders, a community park bench with my name carved into the frame. People were finally starting to see the value in what I did. Not because it was flashy, but because it lasted. One morning, I stood outside the shop, coffee in hand, watching the sun rise over the rows of tools and machines I once thought weren't enough for her. Now, they were more than enough for me. They were mine, built with time, grit, and all the parts of me no one ever clapped for. I hadn't heard from Madison since the night of the award ceremony. That final message, "You deserve that. I'm happy for you, Dot," was her last whisper in a story that no longer belonged to her. She faded out of my life like a character who didn't make the final cut. And I let her go. Not with fire, not with revenge, but with peace. People always think closure comes with a speech or some perfect moment where both sides cry and hug it out. But real closure is quiet. It's standing in your own life and realizing you've built something no one can take from you again. She divorced me for being a factory worker. But the world I built with those hands? She came back needing it. And I left her standing at the door. So if you're reading this, and someone ever tells you you're not enough because of what you do, don't break. Don't beg. Don't prove them wrong with noise. Just build. Build so well that one day, even the ones who left you in the dirt have to look up to see you. And when they come back, let them knock. Let them beg. But remember, not all doors are meant to open twice.
I'll never forget the moment I first felt something was wrong. It wasn't subtle, it was an earthquake that shook my life to the core. We were at my best friend Logan's barbecue, and my wife, Stephanie, was laughing at something Logan's brother, Mike, had said. She laughed too hard. Now, I'm not the jealous type, but there was something in the way her hand lingered on his arm, the way her eyes sparkled a little too much, that made my stomach tighten. I shook it off, convincing myself I was imagining things. After all, Stephanie had always been vivacious, always the life of the party. But then, the bombshell came. A few days later, I came home earlier than expected from work. I had a headache, the kind that feels like the universe is hinting at something you're not ready to know. I opened the door to our home and heard her voice, low, flirtatious, the kind of tone she hadn't used with me in months. "Can't wait to see you again," she said. My heart slammed against my ribcage. I walked into the living room just in time to see her hang up the phone, her face glowing like a teenager in love. She jumped when she saw me, her smile freezing into something unreadable. "Who was that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Her eyes darted to the floor. "Oh, just my mom," she said, too quickly. I didn't press her, yet. But the first seed of doubt had been planted, and it was already sprouting thorns. That night, I couldn't sleep. Memories started flooding back, how she'd suddenly started spending more time at the gym, how her phone was always glued to her hand now, and how she'd recently changed her perfume to something bolder, sexier. The next day, I decided to trust my gut. I knew it was a line I'd never crossed before, but I checked her phone while she was in the shower. My hands trembled as I scrolled through her texts. Most of it was mundane, messages to friends, work stuff, but then I found a thread with someone named M. My blood ran cold. The messages were playful at first, but as I kept scrolling, they turned unmistakably intimate. "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. You make me feel alive again." And the clincher, I wish he wasn't in the way. He. Me. I felt like someone had dropped a boulder on my chest. The room spun around me as my mind struggled to process what I was seeing. Stephanie, my wife, my partner for 10 years, was cheating on me. By the time she stepped out of the shower, my face must have said it all. She froze, towel wrapped around her, water dripping from her hair. "What's wrong?" she asked, but her voice quivered. I didn't answer. I just held up her phone, the screen still displaying the damning messages. Care to explain this? Her face went pale, then hardened. And that's when I saw a side of her I'd never seen before, a cold, calculating side that chilled me to the bone. It's not what you think, she said, her tone sharp. Em is just a friend. You're overreacting. Really? I said, my voice rising. Last night was amazing? That doesn't sound like something you say to a friend. She rolled her eyes, crossing her arms defensively. You're being paranoid. If you actually paid attention to me instead of working late every night, maybe I wouldn't have to turn to other people for validation. Her words hit me like a slap, but beneath the pain, I felt a flicker of rage. She wasn't even denying it anymore, she was blaming me. That was the moment I realized Stephanie wasn't just unfaithful. She was dangerous. I stared at Stephanie, feeling as though the ground beneath me had disappeared. Her words cut deeper than any knife. This wasn't just betrayal, it was her shameless attempt to pin the blame on me, as if her actions were justified. The air between us grew thicker, a toxic fog of anger, disbelief, and the overwhelming urge to shout every curse word I knew. You think this is my fault? I growled, taking a step toward her. You're sneaking around with someone behind my back, and somehow that's my problem? Explain that logic to me, Steph. She didn't flinch. If anything, her posture became bolder, her chin lifting as if she had the moral high ground. You work late every night, she shot back. You're more married to your job than to me. What was I supposed to do? Sit around and wait for you to notice me again? Her audacity made my blood boil. Oh, I'm sorry, I snapped. I didn't realize being a responsible adult and keeping a roof over our heads was a crime. Maybe I should have thrown it all away so I could play therapist for your selfish little ego. Her eyes narrowed. Don't you dare twist this around like you're some saint, she hissed. You've been emotionally absent for months. Do you even remember the last time you asked me how I was feeling? Or is everything always about you and your precious work? I laughed bitterly, the sound hollow and full of pain. Wow, Steph. You should give yourself a medal for how well you've justified cheating. I'm sure Em is proud of you. At the mention of his name, or rather, his initial, her mask cracked, just for a second. Her eyes flicked to the side, a tell she'd always had when she was caught lying. I pressed on. Who is he? I demanded. Mike? Is it Mike? Or some other guy you've been pretending is just a friend? She hesitated, and for a fleeting moment, I saw fear in her eyes. But then, just as quickly, it vanished, replaced by a chilling smirk that sent shivers down my spine. You're pathetic, she sneered. Always so desperate to control everything. Guess what? You can't control me anymore. I took a step back, stunned by the venom in her voice. This wasn't the woman I'd married. This wasn't the Stephanie who'd held my hand at my mother's funeral or whispered that she'd love me forever on our wedding day. You're right, I said, my voice breaking. I can't control you. But I don't deserve this, Stephanie. No one does. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the ticking of the clock on the wall, a cruel reminder that time wasn't stopping for the disaster unraveling in my life. Finally, I said, I want you to leave. Her eyes widened in surprise. She probably expected me to beg, to cry, to grovel at her feet and promise to be better. But I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. Leave, she echoed, as if the idea was incomprehensible. Yes, I said firmly. Pack your stuff and go. Tonight. She crossed her arms, glaring at me like a spoiled child who'd just been told no. You can't kick me out of my own house. Oh, I absolutely can, I shot back. You want to live a double life? Fine. But you're not doing it under this roof. For a moment, I thought she might fight me on it, but then she shrugged, her indifference cutting deeper than any insult could have. "Fine," she said coolly. "I'll go. But don't think for a second that this is over." With that, she stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. I stood there, trembling with a mixture of rage, heartbreak, and exhaustion. Part of me wanted to chase after her, to demand more answers, to scream until she admitted how much she'd hurt me. But another part of me, the quieter, more rational part, knew it wouldn't make a difference. This wasn't just a betrayal of our marriage, it was a betrayal of who I thought she was. The hours dragged by after she left. I sat in the living room, staring at the same spot on the wall, trying to make sense of everything. How had I missed the signs? Had she ever truly loved me, or had our entire relationship been a lie? At some point, I realized I couldn't sit in the silence any longer. I grabbed my phone and called Logan. "Hey, man," he said, his voice cheerful. "What's up? Can you come over?" I asked, my voice cracking. The shift in his tone was immediate. "What happened? Are you okay?" "No," I admitted. "I'm not." 20 minutes later, Logan was sitting across from me, his face a mix of concern and anger as I recounted everything that had happened. "Steph," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. "Man, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." "It gets worse," I said. I think it might be Mike." Logan's expression darkened. "You mean my brother?" I nodded, feeling a fresh wave of nausea at the thought. "If it is him," Logan said, his jaw tightening, "he's gonna wish he never met her." By the time Stephanie returned to pack her things, Logan was still there. She didn't say a word as she grabbed her clothes, her jewelry, and even the photo albums I'd assumed meant something to her. But as she was leaving, she turned to me with a cold smile. "You'll regret this," she said. "You think you're the victim, but you'll see. I always get the last word." Her words echoed in my mind long after she was gone, a sinister promise that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. And for the first time, I felt a chill of real fear. The days after Stephanie left were a blur. I was raw, sleep-deprived, emotionally drained, and constantly replaying every conversation, every glance, every moment over the past few months that now felt tainted. I tried to focus on work, but every email, every phone call seemed insignificant compared to the swirling chaos in my head. Logan checked in daily, pressing me for updates and offering his support. "You want me to talk to Mike?" he'd asked on the second day, his voice heavy with unspoken threats. But I stopped him. "No," I said. "Not yet. I need to be sure." That need for certainty drove me to do something I'd never imagined I'd do, hire a private investigator. The thought made me feel both pathetic and determined. I couldn't just sit there while Stephanie and M carried on like nothing happened. I needed the truth, all of it, no matter how ugly it was. The investigator's name was Amanda, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s who had a reputation for being thorough. "Give me a few days," she said after I showed her the messages I'd found. "If she's been sneaking around, I'll find out." 3 days later, Amanda called me. "You were right," she said, her tone clipped. Her gym sessions were just a cover. She's been meeting this guy at a motel across town. I've got photos, timestamps, everything. I swallowed hard. "Did you see who it was?" There was a pause. "Yes," she said. "It's Mike." My stomach dropped. Hearing it confirmed was like being punched in the gut. Logan's brother. Someone I'd considered a friend. "There's more," Amanda said. "She's also been siphoning money out of your joint account. About $15,000 over the last 6 months. My head spun. "What?" "She's been transferring it into a private account under her name. I'm sending you the full report now." When the email came through, I stared at the documents in disbelief. It wasn't just the affair. Stephanie had been planning for this, stashing money away, creating a life without me. That night, Logan came over again. I hesitated to tell him the truth, but I knew I couldn't keep it from him. "It's Mike," I said, my voice flat. Logan's expression darkened, his jaw tightening. "You're sure?" I handed him Amanda's report. He read it in silence, his face growing redder with each passing minute. When he finished, he slammed the folder shut and stood up abruptly. "That bastard," he growled. "I can't believe this." I reached out to grab his arm. "Logan, don't do anything stupid. I know you're angry, but we need to think this through." His eyes blazed with anger. "You're asking me not to confront my own brother after he's betrayed you, and me, in the worst possible way?" "I get it," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "But Stephanie isn't just cheating. She's playing some kind of game, and I don't know where it ends. Let's not give her any ammunition." Logan exhaled sharply, pacing the room like a caged animal. Finally, he nodded. "Fine. But I'm not letting this go." The next day, I called my lawyer. I'd been putting it off, hoping Stephanie might come to her senses and agree to a clean separation, but I knew now that wasn't going to happen. "She's already stolen money," I explained to the lawyer, a sharp-eyed man named Frank. "I need to make sure she can't take anything else." Frank nodded, taking notes. "We'll freeze the joint account immediately. And based on the evidence you've provided, I think we can argue for financial restitution in the divorce settlement." Divorce. The word felt heavy on my tongue. It wasn't what I wanted, not really, but Stephanie had left me no choice. Later that evening, I got a call from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Mike," the voice said. My hand clenched around the phone. "What do you want?" I wanted to apologize," he said, his voice trembling. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." I laughed bitterly. "Didn't mean for it to happen? You've been meeting my wife at a motel for months, Mike. You don't just trip and fall into that situation." "I know," he said quickly. "I know. But she told me things. About you. She made it sound like your marriage was already over." I closed my eyes, fighting the urge to smash my phone against the wall. "Let me guess, she said I was neglecting her, right? That I was a terrible husband?" There was a long pause. "Yeah," he admitted. I exhaled sharply. "You're a grown man, Mike. If you believed her lies, that's on you. But make no mistake, you betrayed me just as much as she did." "I'm sorry," he repeated, his voice small. "Save it," I said coldly. "I don't care about your apologies. Just stay the hell away from me." That night, I barely slept. The betrayal felt like it was multiplying, spreading like a virus that infected every part of my life. Stephanie's lies weren't just about her affair, they were about dismantling everything I thought I knew about our marriage, our friends, and even myself. But as the hours ticked by, something shifted. The rage didn't go away, but it started to crystallize into something sharper. A plan. I wasn't going to let Stephanie and Mike destroy me. If they wanted to play dirty, I'd show them I wasn't someone to mess with. By the time the sun came up, my anger had transformed into a steely resolve. I wasn't going to sit back while Stephanie and Mike made a mockery of my life. No. If they wanted to burn everything to the ground, I'd make sure they went down with the fire. The first thing I did was meet with Frank again. "I want to go on the offensive," I told him. Frank raised an eyebrow. "How far are you willing to go?" "As far as it takes," I said without hesitation. Frank nodded. "We'll hit her where it hurts. First, let's file a restraining order to keep her out of the house. The money she took? We'll make her pay it back, every cent. And if her lover's involvement becomes public knowledge, it could be damaging in court. I leaned forward. Can we use the evidence from the investigator? Frank smirked. Oh, we're using it. Judges don't like cheaters, especially ones who steal money. Trust me, we'll make this a very expensive lesson for her. With Frank handling the legal side, I turned my focus to Mike. For years, I'd considered him a friend, even family. Now, I saw him for what he really was, a coward, weak and spineless enough to betray his own brother just because Stephanie whispered sweet lies into his ear. But Mike wasn't my biggest concern. Stephanie was. I wasn't naive enough to think she'd go quietly. The woman who'd coolly stolen thousands from me and justified her betrayal wasn't about to back down without a fight. And judging by the way she left our last conversation, I had a feeling she wasn't done trying to win. That's when I decided to lay a trap. The next few days were spent gathering every bit of evidence I could find. Bank statements, credit card transactions, phone records, anything that painted a clear picture of her deceit. I combed through everything with Amanda's help, and together we uncovered more than I'd bargained for. Not only had Stephanie stolen money, but she'd also racked up debt in my name. Thousands of dollars worth of purchases, expensive clothes, jewelry, spa treatments. All while I'd been working long hours, clueless that my so-called wife was living like a queen on my dime. But the real kicker? She'd been sending money to Mike, too. Small amounts at first, but they added up. She's funding him, I realized, staring at the spreadsheets. Amanda nodded grimly. Looks like it. Probably to keep him hooked, or to make sure he doesn't back out. The realization hit me like a freight train. Stephanie wasn't just a cheater, she was a manipulator, pulling strings behind the scenes to orchestrate her new life while dismantling mine. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. Stephanie called me. I want to talk, she said, her tone sharp but controlled. I snorted. About what? How you're screwing my money away with your boyfriend. There was a pause, and I could almost feel her anger crackling through the phone. You froze the accounts, she snapped. That was petty, even for you. Petty? You're lucky I didn't call the cops for theft. She let out a bitter laugh. Oh, please. You're not going to do anything drastic. You're too predictable, and you're too scared. Her words stung, but I didn't let it show. Instead, I played it cool. If you've got something to say, say it. I'm coming over, she said. We're settling this face to face. I hung up without answering. When Stephanie showed up that evening, she wasn't alone. Mike was with her. I opened the door, and for a second, the sight of them standing together almost made me laugh. They looked smug, as if they'd already won. Mike had his hands in his pockets, trying to act casual, but the way his eyes darted around told me he was nervous. Stephanie, on the other hand, was pure ice. Get to the point, I said, crossing my arms. We're here to make a deal, Stephanie said. A deal? I repeated, raising an eyebrow. You're joking. She smirked. No joke. You give me half of everything, the house, the savings, everything, and I walk away. No drama, no fighting. Just a clean break. I laughed, genuinely this time. Half? After what you've done? You've got some nerve, Steph. Her smile faltered, just for a second, but she recovered quickly. You don't have a choice, she said. If you fight me on this, I'll make sure you regret it. I looked at Mike, who was avoiding my gaze like a guilty child. And you're okay with this? I asked him. He shrugged. I'm just here to support her. Support her? I echoed, my voice rising. You mean leech off her like the parasite you are? Let me guess, she promised you the good life after she bleeds me dry. Mike's face turned red, but Stephanie cut in before he could respond. Enough, she snapped. This is happening whether you like it or not. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Oh, it's happening, all right. But not the way you think. Her smirk returned. What are you going to do? Call your lawyer? Good luck with that. I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled out my phone and pressed play on a recording I'd started the moment they walked in. Her eyes widened as her own voice filled the room. You give me half of everything, the house, the savings, everything, and I walk away. No drama, no fighting. Just a clean break. Mike's face went pale. What the hell is this? It's called evidence, I said calmly. For court. You think you can blackmail me into giving you half my life? Think again. Stephanie lunged for the phone, but I stepped back, my hand tightening around it. I don't think so, I said. You wanted to play games? Fine. But I'm the one setting the rules now. Her face twisted in fury, but before she could say another word, I opened the door and gestured for them to leave. Get out, I said. And don't come back. As they stormed off, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. This wasn't over, not by a long shot, but for the first time in weeks, I felt like I had the upper hand. And I wasn't going to let it go. The days that followed their dramatic visit were a chess game, one where I was determined to stay 3 moves ahead. Stephanie had underestimated me, and I wasn't going to let her smug arrogance or Mike's spineless support system blindside me again. The recording of our conversation gave me a crucial edge, but I wasn't foolish enough to think it was over. Stephanie was crafty, and if she was bold enough to demand half of everything while standing next to the man she was cheating with, I knew she had more tricks up her sleeve. I decided to stay vigilant. One evening, while reviewing the evidence with Amanda, something new came up. Did you know Stephanie's been spending a lot of time at a lawyer's office? Amanda asked, her face partially lit by the glow of her laptop screen. My stomach twisted. No. Whose lawyer? Not sure, she replied. But I've seen her go there twice this week. It's a family law firm downtown. Could be for the divorce, or, she trailed off, but the implication hung heavy in the air. Or something else entirely, I finished. Stephanie's plan became clearer over the next few days. Documents arrived at my lawyer's office, making outrageous claims about our marriage. She accused me of neglect, emotional abuse, and, get this, even hiding assets from her. She's going for a full smear campaign, Frank said when I called to vent. It's a classic move in high-stakes divorces. Paint the other party as the villain so she looks like the victim. Don't worry, we've got more than enough to counter her claims. That was supposed to be comforting, but it didn't stop the bile from rising in my throat every time I thought about it. Stephanie wasn't just trying to take my money, she was trying to destroy my reputation. The breaking point came during a family dinner at my parents' house. It was supposed to be a quiet evening, just my parents, Logan, his wife, and a few close relatives. I hadn't told them everything yet, only that Stephanie and I were separating. I didn't want to drag them into the mess until I had more answers. But Stephanie had other plans. We were halfway through dinner when the front door burst open. Everyone froze, forks clinking against plates as Stephanie stormed in, her face twisted with rage. In her hand, she held a gun. Stephanie, my mother gasped, her voice trembling. What the hell is this? I said, rising from my chair. Stephanie ignored me, her wild eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. She raised the gun, pointing it directly at my chest. Well, that's it, bastard, she hissed. You ruined my life. Now it's my turn to ruin yours. The room erupted into chaos. My father shouted something I couldn't hear over the pounding in my ears. Logan was on his feet in an instant, trying to get between Stephanie and me, but she waved the gun at him, forcing him to back off. Stay out of this, Logan, she snapped. This is between me and your brother. You've lost your mind, I said, taking a cautious step toward her. Put the gun down before someone gets hurt. Stephanie laughed, a cold, hollow sound. Hurt? Oh, you think I'm just going to hurt you? No, no, no. You took everything from me, Ethan. My life, my security, my future. You did that to yourself, I said, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. You lied. You cheated. You stole from me. Her hand trembled, and for a moment, I thought she might lower the gun. But then her expression hardened, and she shifted her aim, to Logan's wife, Anna. The air left my lungs in an instant. No! I shouted, lunging forward. A gunshot rang out, deafening and final. For a split second, I didn't know what had happened. The sound reverberated through the room, followed by the shattering of glass. My shoulder burned like fire, and I realized she'd hit me. Logan tackled Stephanie before she could fire again, knocking the gun out of her hand. It skittered across the floor, landing near my father's feet. He grabbed it, his hands shaking as he pointed it away from everyone. Call the police, my mother screamed. I staggered back, clutching my shoulder as blood seeped through my shirt. Logan wrestled Stephanie to the ground, pinning her arms behind her back as she screamed and thrashed beneath him. You've lost it, Stephanie. Logan shouted, his voice raw with anger. What the hell is wrong with you? She deserves everything coming to her. Anna cried, her voice trembling. You could have killed someone. By the time the police arrived, Stephanie had calmed down, but the manic gleam in her eyes hadn't faded. She didn't resist as they cuffed her and led her out of the house, but she glanced over her shoulder, her gaze locking with mine. This isn't over, she said, her voice dripping with venom. I didn't respond. Later that night, after the chaos had settled and I'd been patched up by paramedics, Logan sat with me on the back porch. Neither of us spoke for a while, the weight of what had just happened pressing down on us like a heavy blanket. She's insane, Logan said finally. I can't believe she went that far. I nodded, staring at the bandage on my shoulder. It's not about me anymore, I said. She didn't just threaten me, she threatened everyone I care about. She pointed a gun at Anna, Logan. I know, he said quietly. We're pressing charges, I said firmly. No more second chances. No more trying to handle this on my own. She's dangerous, and she needs to face the consequences. Logan nodded, his jaw set. We'll back you up, Ethan. Whatever you need. That night, as I lay in bed, the adrenaline finally wore off, and the weight of everything hit me. The woman I'd loved, the woman I'd shared a life with, had become a stranger, a dangerous, vengeful stranger. But for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. This wasn't the end of my story. The morning after the shooting was surreal. My shoulder ached like hell, and every time I moved, the pain reminded me of just how close I'd come to losing everything. Stephanie wasn't just a problem anymore, she was a threat to my life and my family. The police had taken her into custody the night before, but I knew this wasn't over. If there was one thing Stephanie excelled at, it was twisting situations to her advantage. Even as she sat in a jail cell, I imagined her scheming her next move. I spent the day with my brother Logan, going over everything that had happened. Anna was still shaken up, her hands trembling whenever she thought back to Stephanie aiming the gun at her. She was ready to kill me, Anna whispered, her voice cracking. She won't get another chance, I assured her, but deep down, I wasn't so sure. That afternoon, Frank called with an update. Good news, he began, his tone calm and measured. The charges against Stephanie are solid. Assault with a deadly weapon, intent to harm, and unlawful entry. She's not walking away from this without consequences. And the bad news? I asked, knowing there was always a catch. She's already spinning her side of the story, he admitted. She's claiming you provoked her, that she acted in self-defense. I laughed bitterly. Self-defense? She came into my parents' house with a gun. Frank sighed. It's absurd, I know. But you'd be surprised how far people will go to create reasonable doubt. That's why we need to stay vigilant. This isn't just about protecting yourself anymore, it's about protecting everyone around you. I decided to take Frank's advice seriously. Over the next few days, I met with private security companies and had cameras installed at both my home and my parents' house. Every door, every window, everything was covered. Amanda helped organize the logistics, and I was grateful for her steady presence. She didn't say much about the shooting, but I could tell she was furious on my behalf. She's completely unhinged, Amanda said one evening as we reviewed more evidence against Stephanie. You need to push harder in court. Go for full custody of your assets. Don't give her a single dollar more than the law requires. That's the plan, I said, though the thought of another courtroom battle made my stomach churn. Then, 3 days after the incident, I got the call I'd been dreading. She's out on bail, Frank informed me. What? I snapped. How is that even possible? She pointed a gun at me, Frank. I know, he said. But bail hearings don't always go the way they should. She paid her way out. Now we need to prepare for whatever she does next. The rage that bubbled up inside me was almost blinding. How could someone like her, someone so blatantly dangerous, be allowed to walk free? She's going to come after me again, I said, my voice low. Frank paused. She might try. But this time, you'll be ready. That evening, I sat on the porch with Logan, trying to make sense of everything. She's like a cockroach, I muttered. You think you've crushed her, and then she just crawls back out. Logan nodded grimly. What's her next move, you think? Probably something dramatic, I said. She loves making a scene. But I'm not going to give her the satisfaction this time. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. You can't win, Ethan. I always get what I want. I stared at the screen, the words sinking in like a stone in my gut. Logan leaned over, reading the message. Is that her? Who else? I said through gritted teeth. Block the number, he suggested. I shook my head. No. Let her think she's getting to me. It's better if we know what she's planning. The next day, I received a letter from her lawyer. It was a list of demands. Half of the house. Spousal support for 5 years. A formal apology for emotional distress. It was laughable, so absurd that I actually chuckled when I read it. She really thinks this will work, I told Amanda, handing her the letter. Amanda's eyes widened as she scanned the demands. She's delusional. None of this is enforceable, especially after what she's done. Doesn't matter, I said. She's not trying to win. She's trying to drag me through the mud until I break. That evening, another storm brewed, this time, literal. Thunder rumbled outside as I sat in my living room, scrolling through old photos of Stephanie on my phone. I wasn't feeling nostalgic, I was looking for patterns, clues, anything I might have missed during our marriage. It was strange, seeing her smile in those pictures. She looked so innocent, so sincere. And yet, behind that smile was a woman capable of betrayal, theft, and now attempted murder. My thoughts were interrupted by a loud banging on the front door. I froze, my heart pounding. The cameras hadn't alerted me to anyone approaching. I grabbed my phone, pulling up the live feed. There she was. Stephanie stood on the porch, her hair plastered to her face from the rain. She wasn't holding a gun this time, but the manic look in her eyes was enough to set off every alarm in my mind. Ethan, she shouted, slamming her fists against the door. Open up. We need to talk. I didn't move. Instead, I called 911, my voice steady as I explained the situation. "She's not supposed to be here," I told the dispatcher. "We'll send someone over right away," they replied. Stephanie continued pounding on the door, her shouts growing louder and more frantic. "You think you can hide from me?" she screamed. "You think this is over? I'll ruin you, Ethan. You and everyone you care about." I stayed quiet, watching her through the security feed. Her face was twisted with rage, and for a moment, I felt a pang of sadness, not for her, but for the life we'd once shared. How had it come to this? The sound of sirens cut through the storm, and Stephanie's expression shifted. She backed away from the door, her eyes darting around like a cornered animal. When the police arrived, she didn't resist. But as they led her away, she looked directly into the camera, her lips curling into a sinister smile. "This isn't over," she mouthed. Stephanie's arrest marked a turning point. For the first time, I felt like I had a real chance to rebuild my life. But her smile lingered in my mind, a dark reminder that the battle wasn't truly over. I wasn't scared, though. The morning after Stephanie's second arrest felt lighter. For the first time in months, I could breathe without the suffocating weight of her chaos pressing down on me. But deep inside, I knew this was temporary. Stephanie's last twisted smile replayed in my mind like a warning, a reminder that she thrived on revenge. Amanda stopped by with coffee later that morning, a welcome distraction from the stillness of the house. She seemed unusually quiet as we sat in the living room, sipping our drinks. "What's on your mind?" I asked, breaking the silence. She hesitated, her fingers drumming against the side of her cup. "Ethan, I've been thinking. What if Stephanie finds another way to come after you?" "She's in custody," I said, though even I didn't sound convinced. "Yeah, for now," Amanda replied. "But you've seen what she's capable of. I'm not trying to scare you, but we need to be prepared for anything." Prepared for anything. That phrase echoed in my mind as I spent the next few days shoring up every corner of my life. Frank helped expedite a restraining order, while Logan and I doubled down on the security measures at our homes. Even Anna, who had been visibly shaken since the gun incident, took self-defense classes at Amanda's insistence. Despite all this, a part of me couldn't shake the feeling that Stephanie's grip on my life wasn't entirely gone. She had a way of leaving scars that weren't just physical. 2 weeks passed without incident. I began settling into a new routine, focusing on work and rebuilding my life. Amanda had been a steady presence through it all, her no-nonsense attitude keeping me grounded. One night, we sat on the back porch, the cool evening air filling the spaces between our words. "Do you ever think about what could have been?" I asked suddenly, staring into the darkness beyond the yard. "With Stephanie?" Amanda asked. I nodded. She paused, her expression thoughtful. "I think it's natural to wonder. But don't get stuck there, Ethan. She's not the same person you married, and maybe she never was." Her words hit harder than I expected. Amanda had a way of cutting through my excuses, forcing me to face the truth I'd been avoiding. "You're right," I said finally. "I can't waste any more time on her." "Good," she said with a small smile. "Because you've got a life to live, and it's not going to wait around for you to figure things out." That moment felt like a turning point. I started making plans again, thinking about the future instead of obsessing over the past. For the first time in what felt like forever, I let myself feel hopeful. But of course, Stephanie wasn't finished. The storm came on a Thursday evening, both literally and metaphorically. I was at home, reviewing some paperwork Frank had sent over, when my phone buzzed with a notification from the security app. Someone was on the property. I froze, my heart racing as I opened the app to check the camera feed. There she was. Stephanie stood at the edge of the yard, her hair drenched from the rain and her face illuminated by the floodlights. she wasn't alone. Beside her stood Mike, his usual smug expression replaced by something more sinister. "What the hell?" I muttered, grabbing my phone to call the police. Before I could dial, Stephanie stepped closer to the camera, her face twisting into a sneer. She held up a piece of paper, pressing it against the lens. I couldn't make out the details, but the bold letters at the top were unmistakable: court summons. The police arrived before Stephanie and Mike could do much else. They stayed at the edge of the property, shouting empty threats as the officers escorted them away. Frank called me later that night to explain. "She's filed a countersuit," he said, his voice heavy with frustration. "She's claiming harassment, defamation, and emotional distress. It's ridiculous, but it's enough to keep her in the game." "How is this even possible?" I demanded, pacing the room. "Because she's manipulative," Frank replied. "And because the legal system allows room for these kinds of stunts. Don't worry, we'll dismantle her case, but it's going to take time." Time. That was the one thing Stephanie seemed intent on stealing from me. She didn't care about winning or losing in court. Her goal was to exhaust me, to keep her presence looming over my life like a storm cloud. But this time, I wasn't going to let her win. In the weeks that followed, the legal battle became my new reality. Stephanie's countersuit was as baseless as Frank had predicted, but it still required hours of preparation, meetings, and court appearances. Every time I saw her in the courtroom, she acted as if she was the victim, her demeanor calm and composed. It was infuriating. But I didn't let her get to me. Instead, I focused on the facts. I provided the court with evidence of her affair, her theft, and her dangerous behavior. I included the security footage of her trespassing and the police reports from both incidents. Frank was relentless, dismantling her arguments piece by piece until there was nothing left of her case but a pile of lies. The turning point came during cross-examination. Stephanie had insisted on taking the stand, convinced she could sway the court with her crocodile tears. But Frank was ready for her. "Mrs. McAllister," he began, his voice steady, "can you explain why you showed up at Mr. Taylor's home with a firearm on the night of October 15th? Her mask slipped for a moment, her eyes darting nervously toward her lawyer. "I was scared," she said finally. "He's been threatening me for weeks." "Threatening you?" Frank echoed, raising an eyebrow. "Do you have any proof of these alleged threats?" Stephanie hesitated, her hands fidgeting in her lap. "No, but—" "No further questions," Frank said, cutting her off. By the time the trial ended, it was clear that Stephanie had lost. The judge dismissed her countersuit and upheld the charges against her, including a restraining order that barred her from coming within 500 feet of me or anyone in my family. It wasn't the victory I'd hoped for, not entirely. The damage she'd done couldn't be undone, and I knew it would take time to rebuild my life. But for the first time, I felt like I was in control again. Stephanie's reign of chaos was over. Or so I thought. Months passed. Stephanie was gone, or at least, she was supposed to be. After the court decision, she disappeared from my radar. No more late-night texts, no unannounced visits, no drama. It was almost eerie how quiet things had become. I threw myself into rebuilding my life. Anna gave birth to a healthy baby boy, and for the first time in a long time, my house was filled with the kind of chaos I welcomed: diapers, sleepless nights, and the sound of a newborn crying. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that Stephanie wasn't finished. It started with small things. A car parked down the street for hours at a time. Hang-up calls from blocked numbers. Packages delivered to my house that I hadn't ordered. At first, I brushed it off, chalking it up to paranoia. But then came the night of the fire. I was lying in bed when the sharp scent of smoke reached my nose. At first, I thought it was a neighbor burning leaves or maybe something from the kitchen. But then the fire alarm blared, and I realized the truth: my house was on fire. I rushed to get Anna and the baby out, my heart racing as flames consumed the back porch. Logan, who was staying with us temporarily, grabbed the garden hose and started spraying the fire while I called 911. The firefighters arrived just in time to stop the fire from spreading to the main part of the house. But the damage was done. The back half of the house was a charred ruin. "Any idea who could have done this?" the fire chief asked as we surveyed the damage. I didn't have to think twice. "Stephanie," I said, my voice cold. The next day, I went to the police station with Frank, armed with every piece of evidence I had on Stephanie. "She's crossed the line," I told the officer handling my case. "She's gone from harassment to arson." They took my statement and promised to investigate, but I couldn't wait for the wheels of justice to turn. I knew Stephanie too well. She thrived on chaos, and if she thought she was untouchable, she'd escalate. That evening, I made a decision. "Enough is enough," I said to Logan as we sat in the kitchen, the acrid smell of smoke still lingering in the air. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "I'm going to confront her," I said. "Face to face. This ends tonight." Logan's eyes widened. "You sure that's a good idea?" "She's unpredictable, Ethan. She's already tried to kill you once." "I don't care," I said firmly. "I'm not living like this anymore. If she wants to play games, I'll end it." I found her easily enough. Stephanie had moved into a dingy motel on the outskirts of town, a far cry from the life she once had. I parked across the street, my hands gripping the steering wheel as I tried to steady my nerves. "You don't have to do this," Amanda had said when I told her my plan. "Yes, I do," I'd replied. Now, sitting in the car, I wasn't so sure. But then I thought about Anna, our baby, and the fire. I thought about the years of lies and betrayal, and the fear she'd tried to instill in me. This was about more than just ending the nightmare. It was about taking my life back. I knocked on the door to her room, my heart pounding in my chest. The door opened a crack, and there she was. Stephanie looked terrible. Her hair was unkempt, her eyes sunken, and her clothes hung off her like they didn't belong to her. "Ethan," she said, her voice dripping with mock surprise. "What a pleasant surprise." "We need to talk," I said, my tone flat. She opened the door wider, motioning for me to come in. "By all means," she said, her smile sharp and mocking. "Let's talk." The room was cluttered with fast food wrappers, empty wine bottles, and piles of clothes. "You've gone too far, Stephanie," I said, keeping my voice steady. "The fire, the harassment, it ends now." She laughed, a sound that sent chills down my spine. "You think you can just show up here and tell me what to do? You ruined my life, Ethan. This is your fault." "My fault?" I said, incredulous. "You're the one who cheated. You're the one who lied. You're the one who pointed a gun at me. And you're the one who left me," she shot back, her voice rising. "You're the one who replaced me with that woman." "This isn't about Anna," I said, my anger boiling over. "This is about you refusing to take responsibility for your actions." Her face twisted with rage, and for a moment, I thought she might lunge at me. But then she did something I didn't expect. She started to cry. "You don't understand," she said, her voice cracking. "I've lost everything. And it's all because of you." I stared at her, unsure if the tears were genuine or just another manipulation. "You lost everything because you destroyed it," I said finally. "Not me. You." She looked up at me, her expression shifting from sorrow to something darker. "You think you've won, don't you?" she said, her voice cold. "You think you can just walk away and live your perfect little life. But you'll never be free of me, Ethan. Never." The threat hung in the air like smoke. I turned and walked out of the room, leaving her behind. But as I reached my car, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. The next morning, I got a call from the police. "We found her," the officer said. "Found her?" I asked, confused. "She was in her motel room. There was an empty bottle of pills on the floor." My breath caught. "Is she?" "She's alive," he said. "Barely. She left a note, though. She blamed you for everything." In the end, Stephanie survived, but she was placed under psychiatric care. The court granted me full protection, and she was no longer allowed within 1,000 feet of me or my family. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel like I'd won. But as I held Anna and our baby that evening, I realized something. Stephanie no longer had control over my life. And for the first time in years, I felt free.